Seahawks win 30-18 over the Arizona Cardinals to improve to 8-5 on the season, 2-0 against the Cardinals, which is critical, and 3-2 against the division, which is also pretty darn good. Especially, well, we'll talk about it. Go over the scoring plays. Cardinals get on the board first. A blown coverage, a 41-yard pass from Kyler Murray to Michael Wilson makes it 7-0 Cardinals with about 11:53 left. Why did I say about? I'm looking at the number right here. There was 11:53 left. But it's all Seahawks from that point on in the first quarter and really the game. Jason Myers makes a 20-yard field goal with 4:41 left in the quarter. We'll talk about that decision. Jackson Smith and Jigba, a 19-yard touchdown pass from Geno Smith with 3:25 left. That makes it 10-7. Notice that those time differences are not very big, and we'll talk about why. And then Zach Charbonnet, a 1-yard plunge. It's 17-7 at the end of the first quarter. Chad Ryland does hit a 28-yard field goal to make it 17-10, but then Zach Charbonnet, I don't know why I always want to call him Jack. Zach Charbonnet, a 51-yard rush to make it 24-10, pretty much at half, but that's the score at the half, so it doesn't matter. The third quarter, Jason Myers makes a 36-yard field goal to make it 27-10. The Cardinals do get on the board again, a James Conner 2-yard pass from Kyler Murray, and then Kyler Murray runs for a 2-point conversion. I guess it's a 2-yard conversion too, but most importantly, it's for 2 points, makes it 27-18. Fourth quarter, the scoring plays are very, very slim. In fact, there's just one. Jason Myers, just after the 2-minute warning, a 35-yard field goal to make it 30-18, put the game on ice, and the Seahawks get a massive win. It's weird how big this win is. You couldn't have told me that week 14 in Arizona was going to be so huge, but here we are. And that's the thing about the NFL. That is the thing about the NFL is you just really... You can predict that they're the elite teams. You can predict the really, really bad teams. There's exceptions to that for sure, but you generally have an idea. Everything else, there can be a lot of changes. And with that win, the Seahawks, like we talked about, or I talked about, you may be talking about it. I hope you are. Improved to 2-0 against the Cardinals, so they will have the tiebreaker there. And they have a 1-game lead on the division, I think. Let's make sure about that. Okay, Google, who won the Bills game? 44-42 today against the Rams. So the Bills can't do anything right. I think they're the best team in the NFL, to be honest with you. But they lose 44-42 to the Rams. So it's a 1-game lead, and it's going to make that last game of the year probably mean something. We've seen that before, haven't we? But it's huge. You now control your destiny, and you controlled your destiny before, but you really have a firm grasp on this thing. And it's up to you whether or not you want to keep that firm grasp on it. We always start with the negative in a win. We start with the things that weren't so good and then build into the great positives of a victory. There's not a whole lot of negatives here. The run defense wasn't great. James Conner was just absolutely destroyed in that win a couple of weeks ago. 18 carries for 90 yards. He definitely wasn't destroyed today. That would be my one negative for the defense. Kyler Murray throws for 259 yards, but we'll talk about the positives there in a second. Maybe the coverage on Trey McBride wasn't the best. And of course, you have the blown coverage on that long Michael Wilson touchdown. Long isn't fair for 41 yards, just long. Maybe add an extra O in there. Those would be my only complaints about this game, that the rush defense wasn't spectacular. For defense, anyway. The only complaints I have on offense are, I kind of go back and forth on this one, thinking about it. But at the time, I was so mad that they didn't go for it on fourth down on that first drive. You're down 7-0. The Seahawks have just struggled to score points in the first quarter so much. So in that regard, I get taking the 3. I do. And that series wasn't going great inside of the goal line. But golly, I was really hoping that wasn't going to end up being a major factor. I think you got to go for it on 4th and goal from the 2. Inside of the 5-yard line, I want my NFL team. I want my college football team. I want my high school team. I want my whatever team. I want them to go for it inside. I want to make the other team drive 96 yards. And 7 points is so much better than 3. It's more than double. It's more than double. It's double just getting the scoring play, and then he got a chance for a very, very, very easy point. I would have gone for it there. And then the only other negative offensively, I would have liked to have seen a few more deep shots. You know, the short passing attack definitely works, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you know, I'm being picky. I'm being picky, and I just look at their team and look at JSN and I look at Metcalf and think, I want to take shots, and Geno has the arm strength to do it. Throw the ball deep. Throw the ball deep. I'm not going to complain too much in a win, but those are my two things. That the rush defense wasn't, or three things. The rush defense wasn't great. I would have liked to have gone for it on that fourth down and, maybe expand the passing attack a little bit. You know who has a really good plan of attack is simply Seattle. What they have done is they have taken the very best in Seattle sports gear and they've made it extremely affordable. And now they have a way to make it even more affordable. And by now, I mean the last 3 years, but it's still there. Use code MOLLYWOP15, MOLLYWHOP15 to save 15% off your order. It's an awesome deal from awesome people, a great local business. They have stuff for the Seahawks, of course, but the Mariners, I got this hat from them. Huskies, Cougars, Sounders, Storm. You can find it all at simplyseattle.com. And then MOLLYWHOP15 saves 15% off your order. And it doesn't matter what team you're buying for, it automatically takes that off. Cannot recommend them enough. Simplyseattle.com. Link in the description. All right. The positives. And I think there are a ton. Where to start? Let's start with Geno. Very solid game. 80% completion percentage. 80% completion. Why did that sound weird out of my head? 80% completion is definitely strong, And sure, there were a lot of shorter throws, but he completed them. He completed them and gets the big 19-yard touchdown pass to JSN. I think Geno was strong. Was it like an elite game? No. But I don't know how much of that was Geno's fault. I think the game plan today was for Geno to be, I don't want to say game manager and get yelled at, but a little bit of that, right? A little bit of that, let's just make sure that we keep this offense on the field. And he did a great job of that. JSN continues to just develop into a star. I'm not surprised. I've talked about it a lot. I talked about it a lot when I was hosting on KJR. I talked about it a lot with just friends. If anybody's listening, you know how I feel about this dude. He's just a really good player. A really good player. I think, oh boy, am I going to get in trouble for this one? I think he's their best wide receiver. In fact, I might go as far as to say he's their best offensive player. He's really good, and he's only going to get better. But the development that we've seen from him over the last 4 or 5 weeks in particular, and look, he had some big games before that. He had 12 catches or whatever it was against the Patriots. He's really good. And DK's good too. Don't get me wrong. And Tyler Lockett, it's unfortunate that he's just become such an afterthought in this offense. But I still think Tyler Lockett's got some big games left in him. Now, they've made the wise decision to make him option 3. And option 3 wasn't even good enough today. He has no catches. Sorry, I was looking to make sure. You could probably tell there's an awkward transition here as I was thinking in my head as I was saying nonsense. If Tyler Lockett was on the injury report this week, I don't think he was. I think he had a DNP rest for practice, but I just think that the Seahawks are kind of realizing that he's not the best fit for what they're trying to do right now. And I'm not saying Tyler Lockett's done, but I do. And I just said, I think he'll maybe have, no, I think he will have a few big games to end the year. But your best 2 wide receivers by a large margin right now are JSN and DK Metcalf. It'd be nice if there was a 4th here that was stepping up. There's not. And the tight ends are pretty shaky. 3 catches for 16 yards for Noah Fant. Just the 1 catch for 13 yards from AJ Barner. I don't know why I'm doing this in the positive section. I don't mean to make this a Tyler Lockett funeral. But I am happy that the Seahawks have realized their best path to success in the passing attack is targeting JSN and DK Metcalf. And Metcalf didn't have a big game today either. 4 catches for 49 yards. Talk about somebody who did have a big game. Let's just go to it. Zach Charbonnet, man. With Kenneth Walker unavailable, you can't say enough good things about, first of all, the offensive line today. Let's go there first. The offensive line today was strong. Now, they opened up some big holes, not just for Charbonnet, we'll talk about, of course. Kenny McIntosh, great to see him contribute. 7 carries for 38 yards. And, I was a big fan of his coming out of Georgia. I thought there was a lot of reason for optimism, and I love that they got him in that late rounds, and he's been in a complete afterthought. And it's understandable why. Kenneth Walker is better. Zach Charbonnet is better. But that doesn't mean Kenny McIntosh isn't a good player. He just hasn't gotten the chance, and he was dealing with injuries as a rookie, and it's hard to get touches for your third tailback. It's very difficult. But they gave him his chance today. He has 7 carries for 38 yards, has a couple of receptions for 7 yards. Be curious to see if they involve him in the offense. If Kenneth Walker's healthy, probably not. But it's nice to know for the future, that Kenny McIntosh is a perfectly capable running back. He looked capable in the preseason, and before you say, the preseason, Chris Crawford, shut up. Be nice to me. It's nice to see. You want to see it happen in front of you, and it happened in front of you today. The other thing, real quick, after last week's debacle of a special teams performance, so much better. So much better. They didn't have as much to do, but they get the job done. A strong game for Michael Dixon. 5 punts, 4 of them go inside of the 20-yard line. Myers connects on all of his kicking attempts. Jalen Darden, played a very strong game. Strong, maybe too strong a word, but does the job. And I know that it was big for them to get a guy that they feel confident in, that he's not going to turn the football over after that just absolute debacle of a special teams performance. And, I hate seeing guys getting cut because of poor mistakes, but it can't happen. You cannot afford to have that on your roster. The Seahawks no team is good enough to afford mistakes like that. So I didn't talk about the special teams before. So let's talk about, I talked about it a lot last week. They just stunk out loud, but they were very good today. This video is a train wreck, and that's okay. All right. The offensive line, terrific job. No sacks allowed. Geno had, part of this was Geno got rid of the ball very quickly, and that's a compliment to him, but also not a lot of pressure. Not a lot of pressure, and that was awesome to see against a decent little pass rush. Not the best, but a decent little pass rush. And they did an excellent job opening up the holes today. Excellent job. And now we can talk about Zach Charbonnet, who was just phenomenal. Phenomenal. And look, I criticized the Kenneth Walker pick and I criticized the Zach Charbonnet pick, not because of their ability, because of where you draft them. I just don't think it's wise unless you are a team who is just absolutely one piece away to use a running back with that high a pick. I would not take a running back in the first 50 selections. There's too many quality running backs that you see get selected later. It's nothing to do with their talent, but Zach Charbonnet was a beast today. 22 carries for 134 yards with the 2 scores, but he also had 7 catches for 59 yards. And it's great to see him used as a weapon like that. And that was one of the things that, we were hoping for when they used that second round pick on him last year, is that he would be involved in the passing attack. Hasn't really happened. Certainly happened today. And it's great to have that check down option. And I'm not saying Kenneth Walker can't be that, but I think Zach Charbonnet is a better receiver. And it's one of the reasons you see him in on third down a little bit more. Terrific job. Terrific. And it's great to know that if Walker has to miss another week, you have confidence in Charbonnet, and you have confidence in McIntosh too. You have confidence in both of those guys. Now, a little bit tougher tests for the running game coming up. We'll talk about that in a second as well. But this was an impressive effort from the offensive line and from the running backs. That 51-yard touchdown was massive to open up that lead, to get that 2-score cushion going into the half. Defensively, now we talked about the run game wasn't great, and they do give up 259 yards in the air, 41 of those on the first drive of the game. Actually, it's more than that, but the 41-yard touchdown. And then there's some garbage time completions. They get down to inside of the, I believe, the 5-yard line. Outside of that, I thought the pass defense was excellent today. Now, Trey McBride has 7 catches for 70 yards. Okay. Nobody else outside of Wilson has over 50 yards, and 41 of those yards are on one play. Just a blown coverage. Outside of that, I thought the Seahawks secondary and linebackers did a very solid job on defense and kept everything in front of them. Everything. And they held them. It was a little bit bend, don't break, but it didn't break. It didn't break. And then, Chad Ryland, who, oh boy, it was sure disappointing to see such a great guy like Chad Ryland miss a field goal. But, you held him to those opportunities. And if you keep teams out of the end zone, you've got a great chance to win games. That seems like the most cliche, understatement, well, duh thing. Doesn't make it any less true. And I thought that the Seahawks defense was phenomenal today. Tyrese Knight, awesome. Ernest Jones, awesome. Woolen played a strong game. Witherspoon played a strong game. Leonard Williams is on one. And I know I forgot to talk about his interception return for a touchdown yesterday, or last week, excuse me. Sorry. Leonard Williams is a star. And I did talk about that they needed Leonard Williams to play at a star level. And he's playing at just that. The pass rush wasn't spectacular, but they did generate some pressures. I love seeing Rayshawn Jenkins getting that sack at the end of the game. I think that was their only sack of the game. I'm making sure about that. No, they had one other one. Oh, Jonathan Hankins also had a sack. Just an overall excellent effort for the team defensively. Held them to field goals outside of, 2 touchdowns. And then they probably would have gotten another field goal chance. Obviously, they would have if the clock didn't run out. But you don't care about that. You're just playing defense to keep everything in front of you and just make sure they don't get that touchdown and if they do get that touchdown, that there's not very much time left. So that even if they do recover the onside kick, which is so hard to do in the NFL now, doesn't matter much. But they get that sack to end the game, and I thought that was an excellent way and a fitting way to end that game. Ernest Jones, those 2 interceptions on back-to-back drives were so massive because, I was not happy that they kicked the 3 there to make it 7-3. But then you get that interception, Ernest Jones, and set up that touchdown. I don't think you could overstate how significant that was. And then getting the other pick as well, I believe it was Kobe Bryant, who is playing pretty solid right now. Playing pretty solid. So what a huge win. What a huge win. It is now 8-5, like we talked about, or I mentioned anyway. Sometimes I forget you're not actually having conversations with me. You're 5-1 on the road. 5-1 on the road. There's part of me that just is hard for me to believe that a Seahawks team can go 5-1 on the road. The Seahawks for years were so good inside of Quest, CenturyLink, T-Mobile, whatever the heck they called it then, and just couldn't get big wins on the road. Well, they've lost 1 game on the road. 1. It's pretty cool. Now they've got to play better at home now. And they have a massive one coming up this week against the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers. You've got the NFC North coming up. You got the game on Sunday Night Football on NBC, a terrific network who employs really good people. And then they play Minnesota at home. And then you go to the Bears on Boxing Day. Yes, I called it Boxing Day. What are you going to do about it? Before ending the year against Los Angeles. Here's hoping that game doesn't matter. In a good way. In a good way. Awesome win. Awesome, complete win. In every aspect of the game, you were solid today. I don't know if you, well, I'd say in the run game, you were actually pretty darn great today. But you were not weak at anything. Well, the rush defense, I guess, but not so bad that they were just gashing you. This wasn't like a triple option army attack that just rolls all over you. Just the 23-yard run, but there were a lot of 5 or 6 yard. Okay. I'm talking myself out of what I just said. No, I'm not. The Seahawks were awesome today. And it's a great win. And I'd appreciate you hitting like and subscribe. So appreciate everyone who watches these videos to the end. I know most of you tune out after 5 minutes, and that's fine. But I have lots of things to say, and so I say them. I appreciate the support. Back with a bunch of Mariner stuff this week. Great win. Really, really, really great win.